Hi, just a continuation of the video about evolution and creation myth, the Big Bang and so on here. So what I promised to mention was one of the explanations for how this universe happens to be so ripe for life, for complex chemistry itself, which is obviously a basis for any kind of life, for formation of stars, formation of galaxies. There's about 99 or so constants, they're called, universal constants, such as the strength of gravity, the charge on the electron, the strength of the weak force, and so on and so on. That if they were slightly different, what we know is that the universe as it is couldn't exist. And without all these things being right, life couldn't exist, complex chemistry couldn't exist. So it seems like it's called the fine-tuning problem. So it seems like the universe, the physical laws of the universe have been fine-tuned for life. And when people discovered this, they were like, oh gosh, is this some evidence that there has been an intelligent designer making sure that the universe was the right kind of universe to give rise to life? And that's one explanation of why it is like that. There's another explanation which I find extremely clever and really mind-opening and interesting, and it's kind of like it's very similar to the argument in evolution from natural selection in the way it works. And what you've got to imagine is that there could be an evolution in terms of universes. So imagine that there's been millions of Big Bangs, yeah, and on the whole, most of these, and I mean, if you look at if you look at how unusual this universe is, it could be billions of universes have come and gone, or exist somewhere, but none of them were right for life. And the only reason we happen to be in a universe that's just right for life is because we couldn't be in any other universe. We couldn't be there to remark how incredibly unlikely it was for a universe to exist that was so perfectly attuned for life. Because in all those other universes, we could never arise. We could never come about. So of course we're in the one universe in the billion that is suitable for life, particularly for complex life, and ultimately for a life that can ask itself questions about where it comes from. Self-aware, conscious life. So is that the case? Well, we can't ever probably know because by definition a universe is a closed system. So science, at least, can never go outside the universe, at least as far as we can tell, because it is all that exists from a scientific point of view. So yes, it's possible that there are billions of other universes, or there was a whole series of universes, and some of which were more suitable than others for life. And now we're in this one. Now that is a mind-bending stretch of time. I think this universe is suspected to be able to last for trillions and trillions of years. So Others may have lasted longer or shorter times, you know. But what if you've got a whole series of them, and it's only now that one's come about that is so suitable for life, that complex life has arisen in it. That is an amazing idea, and I think it's a valid answer to the question: how is this universe so perfectly attuned for life? I actually don't think it would be irrational to say that the reason that this universe is so attuned to life is because there's some consciousness that's made it that way. And the reason for that is because these two hypotheses seem to be in a fairly similar position in terms of rationality to me. And in fact, both hypotheses can exist together. There's no specific sense in which the Anthropic Principle that I've been talking about, where there's millions of universes, and of course we happen to be in one that's suitable for life, perfectly suitable for life. There's no reason for that idea to say that, to rule out the idea of a consciousness involved. It doesn't rule out that. So any more than evolution by natural selection does. It's just that could be the method by which that consciousness goes about things. So that's the Anthropic Principle, which could at least offer some rational explanation of how this universe is so well tuned for life without appealing to some intelligence behind that. But as I say, I don't think it necessarily rules that out, and also I don't think it's particularly a better explanation of some kind of consciousness. It's a matter of what you prefer to believe, really, on that one. So going back to evolution itself, there's one really nice big assumption at the centre of evolution that without which it wouldn't really count in any way against the idea of some kind of creative consciousness leading, creating animals, plants and human beings how it wanted to. And at the heart of the idea of evolution is random mutation. Yeah? So how do we know that a mutation is random? Well, how do we know that anything is random? How do we know that, how do we even know what random means? I mean, there are mathematical sequences that don't appear to have a pattern, but that's more of a matter of what we judge to be a pattern. I mean, random is almost something we call something that we can't see a pattern in. Well then, if we look at the world, and we look at the way evolution has led the world, then surely it's fairly valid for us to say, well, this doesn't look like it doesn't have a pattern. This looks like it had a pattern, it had a goal. And that's as valid a viewpoint, as far as I can see, as to say that mutations were purely random. Now, the complexity and the path that goal was arrived at is well beyond our understanding. But it's an assumption of the grossest kind to say that mutation is random and always random. And I think there's some evidence now that mutations are not purely random. And if you look at the work of Rupert Sheldrake on morphic resonance fields, I think he's showing some evidence that random mutation just can't go anywhere near to explaining the development of simple animals to more complex animals. And I'll be putting a link in the description to some of his work. Now, I mentioned some things about the Earth that are particularly suitable for life. We've got all this water that seems to have come from nowhere. We happen to be in exactly the right spot in relation to the sun. And what you've got to remember with the sun is 99% of all the material in this solar system is in the sun. Now then you've got like Saturn and Jupiter and so on, massive planets. I think Saturn is thought to be almost a sun that didn't quite make it. It could have almost been a sun of its own kind, or we could be in a binary system here. That's how massive Saturn is. And yet 99% of all material in the solar system is contained in the sun. Yeah. So what you're talking about with the Earth is a tiny speck next to this gigantic inferno that just happens to be in the right spot to not be burned and not be frozen. Yeah. So the fact that we're in that particular position is quite unusual, and even though we found a lot of extra solar planets now, I think a few thousand, only one or two of them are in the right spot, or anywhere near the right spot. Even them, they are sort of one side or the other of that golden zone, most of them. I think one is very close to the right zone for liquid water to be present. Out of those thousands and thousands of planets. Now, obviously, our technology is improving and we'll probably find more, but I think we can already say that it's fairly unusual, and especially for a small Earth-like planet. So we're balanced on a pin, really, and that's after being hit by another body. So it's almost like this cosmic game of billiards where we were given a slicing blow by another ball, and that pushed us into a very good orbit and gave us a moon, which has been wonderful. I mean, as I say, you look into the moon, it's almost like the life bringer of this planet and the life protector, and it's contributed a lot to human development. So we've got all these kind of amazing aspects of the Earth. We've got these amazing aspects of the universe, and we've got these amazing aspects of the Earth. And one of the other amazing aspects of the Earth is it's got a liquid metal core. And this is one of the main differences between the Earth and Mars, for instance, which doesn't have this kind of magnetic field to anything like the strength that the Earth does. And this liquid metal core gives rise to a magnetic field that you could see with any compass. Yeah. And that's how strong that field is. It can move a little needle in your hand anywhere on this surface of this planet. It can move millions of those. And this field is like a force field protecting this planet, literally, like something from Star Trek. And it is diverting a lot of energetic particles around the Earth. And if it wasn't for this magnetic field, we'd be more like Mars now. We'd have a much smaller atmosphere because it would have been stripped off by the power of the sun's radiation. And with a less atmosphere, we would have not been able to retain the water we had, and that's what we see in Mars. As far as we can tell, it had quite a lot of water at one time, but it's been lost, sublimated to space, because it wasn't protected by an atmosphere which was stripped off it by the solar wind, because Mars has a much weaker, or almost no, I think, magnetic shield to protect it, whereas the Earth does. And somehow that magnetic shield's been running for billions of years. Billions of years. A machine, essentially, that runs for billions of years, that generates an enormous force field around the Earth. Enormous power. I don't even know what sort of power we're talking about. Gigantic. And this machine partly runs on the pressures at the centre of the Earth, and also partly runs on radiation, because it's partly the radiation from radioactive elements in the core of the Earth that keeps it liquid. And so, you know, it's an amazing machine. It's an incredible machine. It's something that human beings couldn't even conceive of constructing. And there it is, running away for billions of years, protecting our atmosphere, which protects our water, which protects life, to get it going in the first place, and protects us to this day. And if you go outside of that magnetic shield, you know about it. You really know about it. So, and that shield runs to some extent towards as far out as the moon, I believe. So that's partly why we were able to go to the moon. To go to Mars is going to be a lot more difficult, because you're going to have to go through this radiation zone. There's a radiation zone around the Earth where the particles are being diverted around the Earth, which is really nasty. Once you get through that, you've got to deal with the solar wind in general, which can get pretty nasty, especially if there's a solar flare. You know, I mean, we solar flares can even get through the shield, get through the atmosphere onto Earth, and blow power lines. Yeah, you imagine what it would do to a spaceship without the protection of the Earth. So it's quite a challenge, and you know, to be honest, if the spaceship is hit by a solar flare, it will be destroyed. So unless it's got some kind of magnetic shielding. So this is one of the most remarkable things about the Earth, in my opinion, and that made it suitable for life, for complex life to develop over eons, billions of years, billions and billions of years. And obviously that's led to the possibility of any complex life developing, which now, I mean, when you think about it, it's almost impossible normally, without this amazing machine to protect it. And then this miracle happens where suddenly life form becomes so complex that it actually transcends life in a way in itself. It transcends its own environment. and starts to turn back on its own environment and starts to change it. Instead of being the subject, becomes the object. Instead of being the object, becomes the subject. And this is where we are, and it's an emergent property as far as we can tell, consciousness. You know, once an organism reaches a certain complexity, boom, this new property just emerges unexpectedly from the physical complexity of the being, of the organism. This is the scientific story as it stands at the moment. But of course, the Anthropic Principle can be applied to these amazing things about the Earth, because as far as we can tell, this universe is enormously big, maybe infinite, whatever that means. I don't really understand myself, but so in this, let's just say, enormously big universe, I think there's 100 billion stars in this galaxy, and we're aware of 100 billion galaxies. So, and in all that, the chances of there being one planet with all these features, okay, yeah, perhaps that's possible, without some kind of outside intervention, without some kind of intervention of consciousness or intention or design. So there are again answers to this, but I just want to say that it's not as clear. Again, it's not so clear. It's more of a potential answer. It's more of a balancing answer, I would say, that you can go either way still. You can say, well, there must be some design involved here, or you can say, yeah, but in such a big universe, what are the chances? And I wouldn't say either has the upper hand on a rational basis. It's more of a matter of choice, which way you want to go on that. And like I always say, they don't really rule each other out either. They could be part of a whole story. So that will end my discussion on evolution and creation myths. I hope you enjoyed that. Bye.